Hello, this is Mary Catherine at Red Robin Farm, and today I thought I would do a little video of painting a wreath, a watercolor wreath. And the video has been sped up a bit by my husband, so we don't bore you to death. As you saw, I started with a little piece of, this is Canson watercolor, 140 weight, I think. I take a sheet of 9 by 12 and cut it into 4 parts. And so what I have left is a 4.5 by 6 card that I paint. I start with a wide mouth mason jar to get the ring that I want. And the colors, the paints I'm using, this is a Kuretake palette. And later on in the video, you'll be able to see it in its entirety. Now you can only just see the corner of it, that green pan right there. But this is, I think it says Gansai Tambi. It's got 36 colors. And I'm starting with just a plain, I think that's the olive green. Let me look at it. I think that's the olive green. I kind of like starting with that. It's a nice muted green, very pretty for a seasonal wreath. And yes, olive. There's quite a few greens here. There's olive, May green, mid green, ocean, evergreen, regular green, marine, turquoise, and aqua or pale. A lot of green to pick with. But what I'm going to do in this wreath today is mix in some of the metallic colors they have. And you see I went around once. These are very simple leaves, nothing fancy to them. I went around once with the olive green, and then I'm going back with one of the metallics, the straight metallic, and that is going to be, I think, the blush gold. Let me see. No, this is the regular gold. The 3 metallics they have are silver, blush gold, and gold. And I'm doing just the gold at this point. And it looks fairly dark, but this will be a very full wreath with lots of color. And what I'm going to do after I finish this gold, I'm going to use the silver, which just really looks more like a clear metallic. And I'm going to blend the silver with other colors so that almost all of the leaves in this wreath will be metallic. And if I had planned ahead better, I would be holding this card up so that the light shines on it just right so that you can see that all of these leaves are metallic. But my husband's going to post a picture at the beginning of this video of the finished wreath, and you'll be able to see how it shimmers. It's really beautiful. And it just gives a totally different effect. So now I'm going back, as I said, with the gold, and what you're looking for a really full wreath is layers of leaves. And you see how I'm tucking some of these gold leaves behind the green ones so that they're only partially exposed. When you go around the first time with the first color, like I did with the green, make sure that some of the leaves are laying straight over the circle line that you first draw. You don't want all of them to be to the side, because this will give an additional fullness, and it really looks more real, that some of the leaves are going to be laying straight ahead and some will be to the side. I don't like a wreath that looks mathematical, like you planned out every single leaf and it has a pattern to it, because that's not how a real wreath even looks. And it makes it, to me, a whole lot less fun and spontaneous. Now I'm going back with, as I said, some of the silver metallic blended with some red that I just had on my mixing tray. And if you have these Kuretake watercolors, you know that over top of that big palette of pans, you have this clear tray, and it's divided into 4 long sections. And I'm not sure if that's going to get shown later or not, but I use that as a mixing tray, so I can take the paint straight out of the pan. If I want to, I can mix it in there with some water, some clean water. Or if I want to mix some colors together or just get something that's a lot thinner, then I do it in the mixing tray. So sometimes I'll reach over there and blend some things together. And that's what I'm doing with this red. And I'm not even sure that it's any single color of red from a pan. It's probably a mixture of reds that I had in there. It almost looks more pink because when you put a good bit of that silver with it, it really tones it down. So I'm looking, as I'm overlaying the voice for this, I'm looking at this card that I painted, and those red leaves really become more pink. Watercolor always tones down in its intensity of color as it dries, and so all of those colors are going to be just more muted after they dry, so that those reds are going to not be quite so red, which makes for an interesting wreath. We're used to green and red at Christmas, but to have the reds be kind of pink or I don't know, almost a tone of purple in there, fuchsia, is kind of nice. Okay, so I'm going around. You can see the wreath start to fill in. And I'm going to be adding some extras to this. You don't want to fill everything in. You always want to stop, and you'll see me do this in the video. I'll stop and I'll look at it. See, there's that plastic tray I'm talking about. You stop and you look at the card, and to be honest, I ask myself, what does it need? What's it lacking? Where should I go next? I'm really looking for balance. Because a wreath is a circle, which is a really beautiful shape, and it's very pleasing to the eye and the mind of the viewer. And so it always gives your eye a direction to follow. Your eye just goes in the circle, which is really nice. Even a little painting, you want to lead the viewer's eyes in a direction. And so the circle is really nice. But you want to always be looking at it to make sure that it's balanced, that it's not wonky, and that's why it's good to start with a base that's a real circle instead of trying to eyeball it. Now I'm adding some orange. There's just a regular orange color in this palette. It's one of the ones that I've almost used up because I use it so much. That might be something worth it. Yeah, this is just orange. There's only one orange. There's several reds, but just one orange because you can blend orange with so many other things. Let me see, which ones have I used up the most? Again, I blended the orange with the silver, the metallic, so that it would have a real sheen to it. So the ones that I've used the most are the orange, the bright yellow, and then the deepest blue. I keep on having to take the lid off. The only thing is that the names of these colors are, and they're numbered, but they're in Japanese, and of course I don't read Japanese. The deep blue is the other one I've used a lot of. And the olive. But my son gave me this palette, these Kuretake watercolors, and I have used them, and they last a long time, and I've learned to really love them. Okay, now what am I doing now? Oh, now I'm going back with yellow. Now yellow is the one color I decided not to add the metallic to. I wanted to have one set of leaves that was just different. And I'm just tucking these in. Again, I'm looking at it to see where's a spot before I paint. You always ask yourself, where should it go? Where's an empty spot? What would give it nice balance? You don't want to have too much of one color on one side and not enough on the other. And that's why you have to leave yourself space to put these leaves back in. I thought this was a really unusual arrangement of colors. And now I'm taking the yellow and I'm just kind of dabbing and spotting it back in at the pencil outline. There's just some empty spots in the middle, and you really want to make it look full, and I thought the yellow would be a nice brightness. And you see how those leaves go all the way to the edge on the top and the bottom. There you go. So there's the palette, and there's the little mixing pan. Here's my blow dryer. Now once you get all those leaves on there, whoops, there goes some paintbrushes on the floor. You want to make sure they're totally dry before you start putting any paint or ink on top of those. Okay, now there's a little break and we come back. It's nice and dry. I'm taking a pen. My husband's really into these fancy fountain pens. Are they fountain pens, honey? What are they?
That is a Pilot Metropolitan.
That's a Pilot Metropolitan. Anyway, I use it. I have other pens that have a much finer point, but when I want a nice dark circle or something like that, I'll use this pen. It's real ink that he fills into the pen, and I also use this pen to sign my initials on my little watercolor cards. So I'm just putting, these are like blackberries. I don't know, or is there such a thing as a blackberry that's that small? I don't know, but in my painting there is. And then I'll just have a few scattered around. I'll do them in sets of 3, and sometimes I'll do a little line. I didn't do a lot on that one. I didn't want them to overpower. Now I'm taking a white pen. I found this. The guy at Michael's was so helpful. And this is a Uniball something. I looked at it the other day. Really great pen if you want to put some white highlights like snow or things like that. And what I've done is I've gone around and I have put a line, kind of a vein through every one, eat a little orange, a little white vein on each one of the red leaves, okay, and just to make them a little different. And then, what do I do next? Okay, now I've got a very fine brush. I used a size, what is this thing? I used a size 6 round brush to do all of those bigger leaves. This is probably a 2. It's one of my finest brushes that I've got anyway. And I'm taking some, what am I doing? I think I'm putting red around. Yes, that's what I've done. I'm putting little touches of red in various spots around the middle of that wreath, almost to make it look like there's a ribbon that's tucked into the wreath and is just showing in a few spots. And you'll see why I'm doing that in just a second. And now I'm debating, do I want to do anything else? And then I decide I want a pop of color. I don't want something huge or overbearing, but I just want a little something that's maybe a focal point, but just adds a burst of color to the wreath because these are pretty subdued tones. So I'm getting, this is just a bright red from this palette. This one is called, I think that's actually the Scarlet. I use that one a lot when I want a really bright kind of Christmassy red. They have Scarlet, Cadmium, Red, Carmine, and then they also have Dark Pink and Wine, and then there's a Deep Pink. So there's a good bit of red tones you can use. So there's just a little ribbon hanging down from kind of dangling from the middle of the wreath. I didn't want a big bow. And then I'm going to take my finest, this is a 005 tip. So it's really fine, and I'm going to outline each one of the green leaves. When I looked at the card, I was like, those green leaves are kind of blending in, and I want at least one type of leaf to stand out because you want depth in the wreath. And so you want some of the leaves to look like they're sitting on top and others to very clearly be underneath. And one way to do that better is to choose one color and lay them on top. And you can see how now these green leaves really pop to the surface in this wreath. And as I've painted longer, I've gotten bolder about making choices like that, and I'm just not afraid of doing it. If it turns out terrible, I know I can take that little card and throw it in the trash can. It's no big deal. It's not a big waste, and it's not a massive time. I've got a little smudge there. I had to erase that off, and then I'm going to get my pen and write my name. That probably took me about 40 minutes to paint total. Then I put a nice extra strong glue on a blank decal card and glue it down, and then I'm going to tuck it into my Beatrix Potter book and press it, and it's done. Thanks so much. It's on to the next one. Bye-bye.